Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast, where we're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels, and if you've wanted to ever know about how finding and focusing on your niche in real estate investing can help you to live a fulfilled life, then guess what? This is the conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word, because today's guest, even back in 1991, was working in as a home inspection agent, began investing in 1998 as a rehabber and then buy and hold landlord. Back in 2008, saw herself become an accidental wholesaler. Wow, I really want her to tell us more about that. And today she's passionate about empowering women who have an interest in real estate investing, as well as helping all investors build a profitable business by specializing in off-market deals. Wow, this is going to be really, really cool. She's the creator of the Louisville Gals real estate blog and the also very popular Let's Talk About Real Estate Investing podcast, as well as the creator of a signature course, which is Probate Investing Simplified. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's show and conversation, Sharon Vornholt. Sharon, welcome.
Thank you, Billy. I'm so excited to be here.
I am very much looking forward to our conversation today. I loved our pre-conversation and know that you're going to be able to add so much value. And just even a couple of these things that we talked about, I want to dig into them already. So, but as you know, Sharon, I like to ask everybody at least the same 5 questions, 2 in the beginning, 3 in the end. And so we're going to start out with the first question.
I'm ready.
Sharon, help us understand, where do you live in the United States?
I live in Louisville, Kentucky, also the home of the Kentucky Derby. So that's probably what we're best known for. But it's a very stable real estate market here.
Awesome. And so we tend to like stable real estate markets. For some reason, lots of people that listen and watch us on these videos, they love cash flow. So you probably are going to have 1 or 2 things that you can help to share us with the stable market. So also too, what is the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours, Sharon?
Absolutely. I'm on your podcast. That's it.
Awesome. Oh, we love that. We love that. That's a fantastic thing. So yeah, this is I'm really looking forward to this conversation and having that as a positive thing and spending some time with me and the entire Going Long family. So awesome.
Yes.
So appreciate that. And I gave you talked to the Going Long family here and shared a couple of high level things about your backstory, some of the different things that you've done, but I would love for you to share your backstory in your own words and maybe highlight some of the different decisions that you've made along the way to get to this point in your journey, please.
Well, my love of real estate really started when I was a kid. I like to say I was the oldest of 4 and arguably the most well-behaved. So I got to go along with my dad, who was a general contractor. By default, he chose the easiest one. So early on, I had this love of building things. And fast forward years later, I worked in the medical field for a long time. And then I always went back to my construction roots. So I opened a home inspection company. Now, make no mistake, I never crawled under a single house. I was the lowly owner of that company. But about 7 years into that, someone came to me. I met a lot of realtors, and one of them said, "You want to go to a RIA meeting?" And I said, "What's a RIA meeting?" And that was when I learned you did not have to be a real estate agent to invest in real estate. So that was in 1998. I went to the meeting. I bought a little house. I dove right into rehabbing, which probably is not the smartest thing to do, but it was what I knew. And I did have the background with a home inspection company. So I ran 2 businesses for 2 years. And I had a model of I would rehab a house. My plan was to rehab a house, get some cash, and buy a little rental. So I kind of limped along that way, but the other business was very demanding. So you weren't here in the U.S. in 2008, but I'm sure you know that that was when our real estate market crashed. And I had a couple of houses that I planned to rehab. I was real, my real core skill is I'm a really good marketer. So I looked around and nobody here in the U.S. could get a retail mortgage. And I'm thinking, I'm going to spend all this time and money rehabbing this house, and then who the heck's going to buy it? And that's when I became an accidental wholesaler. If you can believe it, I'd been in the business 10 years and had never wholesaled a single house. I really couldn't wrap my brain around it, to tell you the truth. I just called up some my real estate friends and said, you want to buy these houses? And they went, heck yeah. And I thought, boy, that was easy. But really, it's not the easiest way to start out either. But I had a 10-year runway. And while it was the best of times, it was truly the best of times and the worst of times, because the whole world was on sale. I bought houses at the wholesale level that needed almost no work. And so I had to figure out who my end buyer was going to be. And it was always an investor who had a W-2 job also, like a real investor doing deals, but they also had W-2 income. And so they would, I had to change my business model at that point too, because I had to be sure the house would cash flow, which is something I had never really considered in the rehab process. You could make great money on a rehab, but these investors, if they didn't know if they were going to be able to sell it, it had to cash flow. So we all learned together during that period of time, but it changed my buying criteria for sure.
So, you know what, there are a number of things that you just mentioned there, and also too, just at the end, as it recognizing who your end customer is really has a major impact on the way that your business model is set up, right?
Yes.
And so I'm just curious, I even want to go back a little bit before that, because you mentioned that may not be the road best traveled, or you wouldn't recommend that people jump right into the wholesaling piece. But I'm just curious what you thought the impact of being the oldest child, going with your father who was a general contractor, how that actually helped you early on, maybe even be further ahead than most people that were just getting started as quote unquote newbies.
You know, I was just talking to someone recently who happens to be in the UK. I did a podcast with a lady named Nina Cook, and she's a mindset expert, and we were talking about how your childhood influences everything. And I had a father who at the time was one of these super smart people that people couldn't relate to, because he talked about space travel years before it was ever a thing. They thought he was really kind of crazy. But he always told me, you can do whatever you want to do. You're only limited by what you think you can't do. So I end up in two male-dominated fields. And it was only after I got in those fields that I realized that there were any barriers. I really had no clue. So as I went through my real estate career, it never really entered my mind until I hit roadblocks, that there were roadblocks, if that makes any sense at all. Because I realized how very fortunate I was to grow up with parents who told me that, because not everyone has that kind of support.
Yeah. And so when you actually see that at home and you're taught that at home, then you continue to go out until you run into a barrier that keeps you from moving forward. And as you recognize that, then you pivot and you work through that, right? And so I'm sure that the conversation that you had with Nino helped you to go back to your infancy to say, okay, well, yeah, this is one of the things that actually continue to help me move forward and do it faster than most people that were probably in your situation at the time. Did you want to add something else to that?
No, I think one thing that I've learned to ask myself when I come upon something and I feel like maybe I can't do it, I now actively try to go back and say, where did that belief come from? Is that really true? Because sometimes it's all about the stories we tell ourselves. And that's what holds us back, whether it's real estate or something else. You have to get to a point where, say, you have to become a little fearless, actually, if you're going to be an entrepreneur.
Definitely, entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart, and no. I would say not at all. So, you know, Sharon, one of the things that I would love for you to share with us, right? Because we have a unique opportunity here to understand and know a little bit more about your home city. Mm-hmm. And so because we do have so many people that are interested in investing and passive investing and constantly looking for, all right, I know that I want cash flow and I know that there are markets out there that can provide cash flow because they're stable markets. There's not these big, huge kind of coastal city fluctuation that's happening in New York and Los Angeles and Seattle and wherever else. But people may not know Louisville. And so, talk to us a little bit about what are some of the different dynamics of the market that make it attractive for those people that are looking for a stable market and looking for strong teams in that market.
We don't have, as you said, the high fluctuations like those major cities do. They go up tremendously. I have a friend in Denver now, and housing is outrageous in Denver. She's actually investing in Phoenix, which you go, well, that's a really expensive area too, but not as expensive as Denver. So Louisville, we don't have those high ups, but we also don't have the high downs. So it's stable. We have a lot of industry here. We have, UPS Hub, Ford, GE. We have good, solid jobs. So if you're looking for rental property, well-paid workers in those industries make great tenants. They also make great home buyers if you're flipping houses. So we have, I think, a very stable pool of buyers where that is concerned. It's like any market, though. It has its ups and downs, but we don't have the huge ups and downs.
Yeah. And so when you're looking for that stability and you are looking for big brands, I mean, you talked about Ford and you talked about UPS, and those are typically moving in places where they have very large, expensive warehousing facilities that you don't just pick up and move to another place. So the durability of the type of roles that are being brought to the city are durable roles. And then you also mentioned that these are roles that are well paid. And so and these types of companies are, would it be fair to say that they're typically moving people through the city? So they may not be there forever. They're there for, 5-6 years, and then they're moving on to the next thing.
They are. And even companies like, if you look at GE, they're not going to quit making refrigerators and stoves and motors. Cars are not going anywhere. So we've got the automakers here, and certainly having a hub like a UPS hub, it brings in different levels of people. So you've got people from the pilots to the ground and boots on the ground workers. But you've got a very stable, if you're looking for rental property, my vision is that you stay at or somewhere around the median home price. That's your bread and butter house. And you can always sell that house. You can always put a tenant in that house.
And just, I know I'm kind of asking you off the cuff here, but would you happen to know what the median price would be for a home? And I know it depends on where you are, but I don't know if there's like a Louisville area, because also too, especially with the people that are maybe outside of the U.S. or maybe they're on the coast, they don't really know. And I think that what you say right now may shock some people. So I'm just curious if you could share that.
Well, yeah, it's very affordable. A year ago, I would have said the median price was about $158,000, but now it's obviously higher than that, probably by at least $10,000. But when you compare that to $1 million in San Francisco to, I don't know what housing is where you are, but $150,000, $200,000 is a very affordable home. And if you're a wholesaler, you're not paying nearly that much for that house. So you can find properties to cash flow here. Chicago is a great market for folks that are looking for cash flow too.
Interesting. And so also with Louisville, on the square footage, some like the $160,000 home or $170,000 home, what would we typically expect?
3 bedrooms, 1.5, 2 baths. Probably we have a lot of basements here, so maybe a basement, maybe a garage. Just easily what I call a standard, maybe not your very first starter house, but your next move up house where you get a little more house, maybe 1,500, 1,800 square feet.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So that is once again helping us to understand the type of location where you can have the stability of not just income, but the less fluctuation in terms of pricing and things like that, which is fantastic. So I also mentioned one of the things I think it's So you have a signature course in an area that a lot of people maybe have heard about, but they don't really understand. So I'd love for you to help to educate us here. Yeah. Sharon, and just going even back to your course. So you've got the probate investing simplified. A lot of people have probably heard probate and but they may not understand exactly what it is. So could you help us understand, like make it really, really simple? Like what is probate and how does it fit in with the whole real estate investing? Because maybe that's another opportunity for someone.
Well, here you either find your deals on the MLS where you're getting multiple offers now. It's a terrible place to be looking for deals. I was never wanted to play in that playground. I've always worked off market deals. And over the years, it was a long time before I discovered probates, and it was virtually an untapped niche. So with probates, if someone passes away, it's a pretty straight line process. Now, every state, there's a disclaimer, every state is different. Every county has little nuances, over 3,300 counties in the U.S. But someone passes away, they open the estate, and the judge determines whether there's a will or there's not a will. Either way, the next thing that happens is, there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but they're either the will has said, Billy is going to be the executor of my estate, or there is no will and the judge appoints there's a hierarchy of who they appoint. So if you have a spouse, it would be your spouse. Next thing that happens is, and this is what is of great importance to real estate investors, the property must be sold. The assets in the estate have to be converted to cash. The bills get paid. So anything that is the creditors get paid. It could be a car payment, a mortgage, hospital expenses, certainly funeral expenses, attorney fees. And only then, when you get right down here at the bottom, do the heirs get what's left. So if you're an heir and this house has to be sold, it's not like you can say, no, I just want it. That's not the way it works. So it has to be sold. You have sellers who are required by law to sell the property. It doesn't get any better than that. And the thing I want to point out, though, people go, oh, this is creepy, it's morbid. No, these people have a legal problem. They have to convert these assets to cash so that the heirs can inherit what they want. And we get the opportunity to go in and help these people. And it's certainly one of the worst times of their life when they've got all this thrown in their lap. We get to help them get back to their life, to their kids, to their soccer games by buying these properties, by and large, distressed properties.
Yeah, and because this is something that's new for a lot of people, right? And I love how you're discussing it, right? Because at the end of the day, it is about how you're helping someone else to solve a problem. But I just want to make sure that we've understood as a going along family. So probate, basically, in the event that someone has passed away and that person still owes to other people or owes to the city or owes anything, right? Is it a mandate that the property must be sold, or could the family member come in and say, well, look, I'll pay all the debts that are here as long as we can keep the property?
They could sell it. See, sometimes, Billy, what they'll do is they'll will it directly. Now, in the case of a spouse in the U.S., you have usually what's called a survivorship deed. If a husband passes away, the house passes to the wife or vice versa. There are times when the house is directly willed. You might say, I'm going to will this to my son. So in that case, it would escape probate. If you put it in a trust, it's going to escape probate and come out on the other end as an inherited house, which is a whole different opportunity, because you might not want Aunt Millie's house if she left that house to you. You're probably going to sell it. But no, probate is a legal process of settling an estate when someone passes away.
Okay, fantastic. And I know that is very helpful because, it's one of those words where you hear it all the time, but you don't really, probate is this, but how does that actually relate to real estate investing? And how does that really relate to, as you just very kindly put it, how can I help someone else solve the problem that they potentially have?
Well, let me tell you one more thing too. And this is, sadly, with probates, you will never run out of leads. It's the circle of life. People pass away every month, and probates were always forever my number one source of leads, because there is, like I said, sadly, a new group of people that need your help every single month. So you build your list month after month after month, and you just wait till they're ready to sell. They have to get ready up here to move on with the process.
So you just brought up an excellent point, right? Because a lot of times people will think that wholesaling is very transactional. And when I say transactional, I mean it meaning less emotion. But as soon as you talk about probate, as you mentioned, there's going to constantly be leads, because the one thing that will happen to all of us eventually is that we will pass away. So you may have it in a trust and you may escape that part, but the majority, many people will go into probate. So I guess it makes me think of, how does emotional intelligence come into play? Because this is such an emotional time for so many people. At the same time, they have a real life problem that they potentially have to get done. So talk to us about what's that balance between completing the transaction and actually having the emotional intelligence to do it in a way that makes sense.
I think once the real estate, the biggest problem, and one of the main reasons I created the course was because real estate investors were just missing the boat on this so valuable source of leads. You don't have to wait for them to get motivated. They're going to sell the house. Really, the only question is it going to be listed on the MLS in the US, the multiple listing service, or is it going to be sold off market? And let's say for a moment that someone in the US named you executor and you are in Spain. You don't want to come back to the US time and time and time again to sell this house. So it may be a great house. It may not even need a lot of work, but it's a time and circumstances problem for the person who's inheriting the house. So they still want to sell it. Most of the really nice higher end properties will be listed, but there are a ton of properties that will not be listed. But once you can get your mindset around this, they've got a problem. This is literally dumped in their lap usually. They just want to get back to their life. And, when I go to talk to people and I talk to them about the property, people say it's weird talking to the people. It's not. So if, let's say, for instance, someone's mom has passed away and you're walking through the house and you see cookbooks, you very naturally say, oh, was your mom the cook? Was your dad the golfer? There's golf clubs in the corner. It's about building rapport. And these people, they have the need to tell you about the house and how they grew up in the house. You have to be a very good listener. But when you walk away, if you've done this right, you've already built rapport and you have a very high probability of getting the property. It's a little bit more of a soft approach. It is very much a direct mail approach because people do not like it when you call them or text them or do the modern marketing things. But it's your overriding message should be, I'll be here when you're ready to sell. And so when you talk about that, here are the things I can do for you.
Yeah. And so as you talk about that, Sharon, these are the things I can do for you. I'm here for you when you get ready. It really ties in well to the question that I was asking in the beginning, because you're demonstrating that, yes, this is not just a transactional thing. In order to do this properly, you must have a high level of emotional intelligence. And even to think about your process, as you've just explained, I mean, you're very highly in tune with this, because you mentioned nobody wants to receive a text message when they're going through this, or they don't want to look at an email, because that's intrusive. It's interrupting. And so when you're doing something that's a handwritten letter or something that's done by snail mail, of course they have to go through it and they open it, but they're much more actively doing that. And so they will work on their time and not your time, and you're not interrupting him and that person in the middle of doing something that they consider to be more important. It's very much something. So I love the way that you talked about that and just be able to paint that example for the entire Going Long family, because it does show that although this is something that can be perceived as transactional, if you don't have a high level of emotional intelligence, chances are you're not going to be able to solve the person's problem, and they need to have that problem solved.
The good part of it is that anybody can learn this. Once you understand, you have to have an understanding of what probate is and how it works. And I drill that down, and My course is designed to be dripped out. People, I know these people because I'm one. Just get me to the finish line. I make them learn the middle. You have to learn the terminology, because if you are speaking to someone and they say, what does this mean? You need to have a very basic, you don't need to be an attorney, but you need to have a very basic understanding of the process, of the terminology, of how to work with attorneys and those things. And then and only then, about down the path a little bit, do I get into marketing, and I teach them the proper way to market and the proper way to talk to these people. Because I've had a lot of people call me and say, I'm not ready to sell yet, or this house is full of stuff, in which case I'll say, well, I'm going to keep you on the list. You take all the time you want, but also know that you can take what you want out of the house, and we'll take care of the rest for you. I know how painful that is. When my mom passed away, she loved her sofa. It was 20 years old. It did not have any monetary value, but I could not be the person that hauled it away. So I gave that job to someone else. But once you understand, and these people understand, they're under they don't have to hurry. They can take their time. And this is what gets you more deals than anything. We'll finish cleaning out the house. Once you've taken everything you want, you can walk away, and we'll take care of everything.
So, yeah, and so it goes back to what we were talking about before. This is just high levels of emotional intelligence that you're demonstrating throughout the entire process. Mm-hmm. And I guess one of the things that I'm thinking, so we have someone that maybe like today they're listening to us or they're watching us right on one of the video channels. They live outside of the U.S. Mm-hmm. This is maybe we're going to talk about inside the U.S. Right now, but also there's this thing. Well, we know that you're in Louisville, but the person that's watching or listening to us may be in Columbus, Ohio, or they may be in Phoenix. You talked about before, like the way that you can help us. Is it the same? Because you mentioned maybe a little bit different in every state, but do you cover like this is the basis and this is good throughout the United States, and you need to take this into consideration, that in consideration, just to help us understand how much is this specific to a county or a city or a state versus all over the United States? It's the same.
The process, it generally, except for California, they're a strange bird. They're different. Everything's different in California.
California always does things differently. We love you, Californians.
We love you, but you're beautiful and you're really pretty, but you're different. So the process is generally the same. Now, what I will say is you need to Google. If you want to invest in Columbus, Ohio, you need to Google what are how is probate handled in Ohio, and you're going to find a very similar process. Here's the thing that's different, and this is why you can excel in probates. That with there being over 3,300 counties in the U.S., probate leads are sourced locally within your county. Some are online, some are not. In Louisville, Kentucky, they're in the newspaper. Every piece of information you need. This is one thing I'm very clear on. You're going to have to find out how to get the leads in your city. If you Google, you can check online records, but in some areas you have to actually go to the courthouse, which is the very last thing you want to have to do.
I think it's probably pretty obvious, but why is that the last thing you want to have to do?
Because it's very difficult to scale. If you can train someone to go and pull the records, where if someone said to me, I live in Houston, I don't know how to get probate leads. And I said, what's your county? So they said Harris. So I very quickly Googled Harris County, Texas plus probate. Guess what? They're online. Chicago, Illinois, they're online. They're not online, everything you need in Louisville, Kentucky, but they are online in many areas. But you want to be able to build a scalable business where you can add these leads month after month, take them down the path. So if you know direct mail statistics, about 81% of your deals, not your calls, your deals will come at or beyond your fifth mailing. So you've always got someone in the fifth mailing with probates. You got a little bit of a runway, and then it's like a tumbleweed. It's just a machine you've built.
So once again, so it just goes back to the fact. So you're helping people build the baseline foundation, 3,300 counties in the United States. I mean, you've just made it very clear. Like the first thing, if you want to go down this path, is what county do you live in? And based on that, you do a Google search. And then there's a bunch of other things that you need to know. But what you're doing for Sharon is really simplifying the entire process so that also simplifying the process and helping us with the mindset of how do you scale a business, not how do you do a transaction? How do you scale a business? Which is fantastic. And I guess before we kind of get even into the going long final three, the one thing that I would love for you also to talk about, because you have a great expertise in the area of branding and marketing. And so you kind of alluded to some of the things that you do on the marketing side, but maybe give us an understanding as to this real estate background and what you've been doing and how you also are helping people from a branding and a marketing perspective.
One of my biggest mistakes, as I look back on all the years in real estate, one of the things I did wrong that I came to figure out was I wasn't branding myself from day one. Marketing is how you get leads, but branding is why they choose you. So you hear me say that about 1 million times if you ever look at my stuff. What I did was I was probably hard to believe, but I was the kind of shy person that went in my RIA meeting 20 years ago and looked for an empty chair with a safe person to sit by. So I didn't know that I should be over there talking to everybody. So I told people, if you're brand new, let's say you're brand new and you go to your real estate investors meeting, we have them all over the place here in the US. There's nothing wrong with going up to somebody and introducing yourself and saying, hey, I'm Billy Keels and I'm brand spanking new, but I'm here to learn. You say that to enough people over 6 months, they're going to know who you are, because it's not really who you know, it's who knows about you. So you can start building a brand as the nice guy who's here to learn. And then he's the nice guy that's got some properties. And then he's the nice guy that does this. But that is branding at its simplest thing. But make no mistake about it. You need a website. You need credibility. You need to be creating some kind of content. Like I've noticed you create a bunch of videos. You don't necessarily have to be a podcaster. You don't necessarily have to be a blogger. You can be looking at property and taking videos of the walkthroughs of the property. It doesn't have to be hard, but people have to know about you. You can't be the best kept secret in town and be successful in today's digital age. You just cannot do that.
That is super helpful. And you are absolutely right. And love the way that you distinguish between marketing and branding, right? Because you're absolutely on the money. And then also being able to have the supporting detail, because nowadays, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, someone can find out about you. Right. And so you need to be there. You need to be present and do it in the way that makes the most sense for you, Sharon. As you mentioned, you can be a blogger, or you can be a podcaster, or you can be someone who just likes to do videos, or do all of them if you want, and you can scale. It's about being able to, once again, to build. And I guess here we're talking more to the people that are really looking to build their business and be active, right? So that you can bring that right person towards you. Sorry, go ahead. You wanted to say something else.
I was just going to say, one of your first things you should do is build a website, but you can start today. You can pull out your smartphone the next time you look at a house, make a short video and post it on Facebook. I actually know somebody that had a deal go south. Their private money lender backed out of the deal. And because every week he said, man, looked at this gem it was a falling down house. He went on Facebook and said, my deal fell apart. My private lenders, his money's not going to come in time to be able to fund my deal. And someone said to him, I'll fund your deal. I know you're the real deal, just from being on Facebook. So things like that actually happen.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. And it's once again, because you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. And so when there are people that are consistently following you, it is something that is the same. I'm sure that you've experienced the same with people reaching out to you on the podcast. Happens to all the time here, because we're constantly here and we're sharing the information and our expertise, and that helps. And it's a way to at least open that dialogue. And I think it's fantastic. So I guess the last question before we get into the going long final three, because we got to get into the going long final three quickly.
I know.
Is Sharon, tell us a little bit. I mean, tell us what, if we have to project 12 months from now, how many people are you helping? What are you doing? Give us an idea as to what we can expect from you in the next 12 months.
Well, I am trying to really get people to deals are so hard to find here. I guess they are where you are too. There is no inventory in the U.S. So I'm trying to get people on the off-market deal bandwagon, because even if you normally work deals on the MLS, off-market deals are always there. Out-of-state absentee owners, so many different types of off-market deals, and there's so much less competition. If you want to have an easier go of it, and instead of competing with 3,500 people on the MLS, go out and compete with 20 people. Here's the other direct mail statistic I'll give you. So we said about 81% of the people of your deals will come at or beyond your fifth mailing. But guess what? 90% of your competition quits on or before the third mailing. So all you have to do is just hang in there. And then you're down to just a tiny handful of people. And if you branded yourself, understand that used to be they would find out about you and then they would call you and you would put a deal together or not. Now there's a step in the middle. Maybe in my case, they probably hear about me through one of these methods or direct mail or whatever. But the next thing they do now is they go online and they Google you. They stalk you. They want to know, do you have a LinkedIn profile? Do you have a website? This is a real thing, folks. You should Google yourself, and you need to fill up at least that first page with it can be a Facebook page, a LinkedIn profile. It can be something that you did, but you want, when you Google your name on, you want to find at least a page. We've been doing this forever, so we've got a lot of pages, but there better be something on there. They're not going to think you're legit.
Yep. I'm a big believer in yes. And also too, one of the other things is depending on how common your name is, it could be more or less of a challenge, right?
Absolutely.
But even when you have a quote unquote unique name, you still have to do the work, because if you even have a unique name, but you don't do the work, you don't show up on Google.
You don't show up
at all. And that it can be a very, very difficult thing. And Sharon, it's also too, and I guess this was a great kind of segue, especially when you are long distance. It's really important that people can see that social proof, right? That you exist. It's really important when you're in your local, like when you are in your backyard, it's important. But when you're long distance, it's even more important because like if they don't see you, then there's a chance that you don't really exist, at least in their mind. And so I love that you shared that with us. And so guess what, Sharon, it's time to get to the Going Long Final Three. And the thing is, like, I never ask the Going Long Final Three unless you tell me that you're ready for me to ask. So are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
You were born ready. Here we go. So we started over your side of the pond, and I guess your side, my side, because I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I've just been over here for a long time on this side of the pond. So I would love for you to share with the Going Long family, what is your favorite European city that you've either visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
I have one on my bucket list, and I'm going to make it there when the borders open and COVID is not such of a thing. I have a friend that just moved to Portugal. And so she sends me all these enticing pictures, and she's kind of finding her way now. She got some Airbnbs to kind of figure out where she wanted to live. But so that's on my list. That's on my list. Okay. Yeah, it's a beautiful place. I have a family member who comes over, or at least pre-COVID, that came over frequently and would stop in Portugal and stuff like that. So yes, so we'll take that. And then here's the other thing. Question number 2. I know a lot of really successful people. You know a lot of really successful people. You're a very successful person. And the thing that you all have in common is that you typically make one mistake throughout your entire trajectory. Okay, I get that wrong all the time, Sharon. So maybe not, all right? Successful people, the thing that most people don't talk about is that successful people make probably 20 times more mistakes than anybody else. The difference is they do something differently. And typically one of the first things that they do is learn a lesson. And so I would love for you to share with the Going Long family, like, what is one lesson that you would pay forward to the Going Long family with the hopes of helping each and every person that's watching or listening to us move forward faster? When I think back to my very first deal, it's kind of funny now, but I was so terrified to talk to the other investor because I knew he was let's just say he was very pushy, forward, and demanding, that I actually had an agent negotiate that deal. Later on down the road, she was an agent who represented investors. I found out actually they don't always, if they're not an investor, they don't always know really what they're doing. So I decided from then on that I would not be intimidated by these people that got right in your face and then tried to push you to do something. So I learned to stand tall and be confident, even if my knees were shaking. And that was something that I had to really learn the hard way. And I see people backing away today from standing in what their truth is and what they know they should be doing. And I would just say, don't do that. When you talk to sellers, talking to sellers is terrifying for a lot of people. And if you're going to work in off-market deals, you have to talk to sellers, other investors. So don't do what I did. Just dive in and just do it, as Nike says.
Yeah. Just do it. Which I love that. I appreciate that. And then lastly, Sharon, we love to fill our minds with knowledge here in the Going Long podcast. So if you could kind of answer the last question of the Going Long Final Three, and what book would you recommend to the Going Long family?
I actually have two, and they go hand in hand. The first one is called Clockwork, and it's by Mike Michalowicz. He wrote Profit First, The Pumpkin Plan. He's written off, but Clockwork tells you how to figure out what your role in your business should be. For most of it, it's being the face of the business, and then how to get rid of everything else so that you can stay in that cone of where your genius is. So that's the first one. And the book I'm reading right now is called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. Yeah. Have you read that one? I love that book. I'm almost through it. And so once you know you shouldn't be doing everything in your book, in your business, which you find out in Clockwork really fast, then it's who do I get to do it? And every time you want to ask yourself, how do I do this? Go, no, where's my who? Where's my who? So I love that book. That's going to be one of my, those are like a couple to me. Those books are like a couple.
And you know what? And we've not had Clockwork, so I'm going to take Clockwork because we've had Who, Not How, which is, it's a game changer as well. I
love it. Yeah.
But we're going to take Clockwork if you're okay with that.
Take Clockwork.
I appreciate you over delivering. But we're going to use that one to go as your selection. So, wow, Sharon, I cannot believe the time has already flown by. Like it's just insane. Like it happens so quickly. And so, I think about you talking to us back in 1991, kind of what you were doing and getting your own company started and on the inspection side of things. And then in 98, really getting involved, and all that kind of was underpinned because you had the good fortune of riding around with your dad as a general contractor. And so you were already ahead of the game. And then just like everybody else, like you started running into certain challenges. And what did you do? Well, you pivoted and you started to meet people and you started to network and you started to niche down and you started to learn the things that you wanted to learn. And then since then, you continue to go out and you've helped people like understand how to be fantastic and execute well on off-market deals, how to understand probate. For goodness sakes, you wrote a course about it, right? And you're helping people all over the United States. And then even with that, helping people to understand the importance of not just marketing, but also branding and how it really help everyone or help the individual to bring those concepts on really become a much more impactful individual, right? A much more significant person. And so because of all these like goodness that you've left us, I'm sure that there's so many people that want to reach out and want to find out more about you, Sharon, and what it is that you're doing. And so please help us understand what is the best way for the Going Long family to contact you, to reach out to you and understand more about what you and your team are doing.
They can always come over to the blog. Everything tags off of the blog, the podcast, the Louisville Gals Real Estate blog, or you can send me an email at sharon@sharonvornholt.com.
Cool. Sharon@sharonvornholt.com. And also check out the blog, as you mentioned, Louisville Gals Real Estate blog.
Real Estate blog, yeah. And Let's Talk Real Estate Investing podcast tags. You can tag right off of there to the course or to everything. The blog is kind of the hub.
All right. Fantastic. So you make it very easy for us, Sharon. So appreciate that. Sharon, listen, I really appreciate you investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family. So thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been so much fun.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate that. And Sharon, if you'll allow me just a couple seconds, I just want to say thank you to the entire Going Long family. So listen, Going Long family, Sharon just left us so much value. She helped us to learn more about things that we'd not talked about before. And you know what? It's just fantastic. And so in the same way that Sharon helped us and made an impact, you now have the opportunity to go out and share today's episode with 2 or 3 other people. Be that person that is sharing something impactful, positively impactful with their life. Also, it'll help to attract them to our Going Long family. And so we have more and more like-minded people together. At the same time, I'd love for you to leave your honest review of what you thought about today's conversation, what you liked, what you learned, what you would love to know more about. And as you know, I go through each and every one of these reviews, an honest review. Like I said, it's just something that's really important. And that also helps not only to attract other fantastic guests and experts like Sharon, but also helps me to create with the team the best possible podcast experience for you. So until the very next time, I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next episode for the next conversation. Until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? You know, when I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long-distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.